Yeah, so universal knowledge would be much like the collective consciousness. So everything that we all have access to. Again, the difference between collective consciousness versus divine intelligence is like knowledge that's been created from source that we can all have, where like the knowledge is just something where are people functioning and how do we get people shifting.
Shifting from what to what, incidentally?
Shifting from pain into bliss, shifting from unconscious to conscious, shifting from letting life happen to you for letting life happen as you.
Oh, I've never heard. Oh, wow. I've heard the distinction, Byron Katie talks about a lot. Life isn't happening to us, it's happening for us. But you said it, you didn't say that.
No, so there's 4 levels of consciousness. And so the first one is life happens to us. Second is life happens for us. Third, life happens with us. Fourth, life happens as us.
Most of us never learned how to train our brains, which is why most of us needlessly settle, struggle, and worse, suffer. My name is Chris Doris, and I want to make brain training mainstream. This is my series, Tough Talks, Conversations on Mental Toughness. I'm interviewing badasses from all walks of life on what mental toughness means to them and their unique approaches to strengthening their minds. Hey guys, welcome back to Tough Talks, Conversations on Mental Toughness. I am your host, Chris Doris, and if you're not getting notifications of the new episodes of Tough Talks, then I encourage you to go to christopherdoris.com/lists, Lists. Name, email, click, and you'll get on both of my lists, which means you'll be getting, the one list is you'll get notifications of all the newly released Tough Talks interviews or episodes, as well as whenever I release a new blog post, which is every Tuesday. So you'll get notifications of those. The other list is the Daily Dose list, right? And the Daily Dose, mental toughness tips in 30 seconds or less. So when you get on that list, then every morning at 6 a.m., no matter where you are in the world, you're going to get a condensed nugget of mental toughness gold, right? That'll take you 30 seconds or less to read that you can reflect on for the rest of the day. Delivered straight to your inbox at 6 a.m. Now, our guest today is named Colleen Gallagher. I don't know Colleen at all. I've had one conversation with her. She was recommended by another former Tough Talks guest, whose name is Veronica Villanueva. And I encourage you to also check out her episode. One of the things that they share in common is that they both, and this is like their language, co-created cancer for themselves, right? And then cured themselves of it. And through spirituality or consciousness. I'll let her explain that. This is how Colleen describes herself on her website. I am a heart-centered business consultant, international speaker, educator, intuitive guide, published author of multiple books, one of which is just came out, her third one. She's working on her fourth. Soul activator, global citizen, and transformational leader. And that's a lot. But this is what I'm going to probably start off the interview by asking her to elaborate upon this paragraph in her bio, because this totally got my attention. She says, "My spiritual gifts grant me access to receive divine intelligence, universal knowledge, psychic downloads, telepathic communication, and clairvoyant and clairsentient intuition. I draw on my experience of light language," and that's like capital L, light language. It's not mean like mellow talk. It means, I guess, the language of light. "Hypnotherapy, Reiki, neurolinguistic programming, empathic gifts, and my ability to see light, color, and feelings. To see feelings. To help me perceive what's going on in a person's life and intuitively guide them back to a balanced state." So she's totally got my attention on all that. I can't wait to hear her elaborate on that and let us know what all that means. So no further ado, let's go find her. She's here waiting. Colleen, where you at? And here she is, folks. Colleen Gallagher. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm so good. Chris, how are you?
Well, this is the best day of my life.
You said this and we match, which I love even more.
We match. However, my hands are not nearly as colorful as yours are.
We just got the nails done yesterday. We get them done every 2 weeks, and we have different names for them. So I just did on my social media, like the best name wins, and I'll do like a free Oracle card pull. So we had Orange Dream Machine, we had Candy Crush, Pumpkin Pie. So yeah.
Orange Dream. So orange. God, when my family, when I was a teenager, we used to own a store, a funnel cake store on the boardwalk in Ocean City, New Jersey, which is interesting because my sister, my older sister, Patty, just texted me a minute ago. She's actually down there. She took the day off. She's a professor at Villanova. She took the day off and she's actually on the boardwalk now and sending me pictures from this beautiful day. We had a machine in our store that sold like a frozen slushy orange thing. And that would be the name. It's not that long of a name, but it's like orange
Slushy or something. Yeah, someone said Tequila Sunrise. We had a bunch of names. Like I do this every 2 weeks when I get my nails done, and my followers like pick the name of the nails. It's great.
So, you do know that the whole intention behind me even doing these tough talks conversations is because I'd like to spread the word to as many people as possible. Two things. One, that there's stuff you can do to strengthen the way that you use your mind. And then like B, like what is it? So one, or what are those things, right? And I'm excited to hear from you because you've got what I understand to be a remarkably unique background. And I have a ton of questions. So before I ask you, because I ask everybody, what does mental toughness mean to you? I love having the audience hear so many different, like diverse responses to what that is, because some people align and vibe with a certain response versus others. But before we get to that, I need some clarification from you. I need some help.
Tell me.
Okay, thank you. So I appreciate your obliging before even knowing what I'm going to request. That is trust. That is excellent trust. So in your bio, you have a fascinating bio. You say, actually, let me just read it here. It says, my spiritual gifts grant me access to receive divine intelligence, universal knowledge, psychic downloads, telepathic communication, and clairvoyant and clairsentient intuition. I draw on my experience of light language, capital L, light language, hypnotherapy, Reiki, NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, empathic gifts, and my ability to see light, color, and feelings to help me perceive what's going on in a person's life and intuitively guide them back to a balanced state. Okay, that's a lot. I'd say a fifth of it I understand.
Yes, I love this.
Can we go through some of that? Because I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one listening to this or watching this having some questions about some of those things.
Yes, let's dive in. Which one do you want to start with?
Okay, well, let's start at the beginning. And we don't need to like super like go for an hour on each of these, but just give us like, what does this mean? Like, the synopsis from the expert. What divine intelligence? I can guess what half of these things mean, but I don't want to. I want you to tell us.
Yeah, so I love this. Okay, divine intelligence. So what I say, all of us as human beings, right? We have access to an infinite cloud. We can call this God. We can call this universe. We can call this source. If you don't believe in anything, you can call it strictly the cosmos. We all have access to this iCloud or cloud. And
what did you call it? What kind of cloud?
iCloud, cloud, divine intelligence. You can call it either one. iCloud, cloud, whatever you want. But we have access to this. And so NLP really plays a huge part in this because we always can access new layers of information that's always available to us. Just as you were saying, wow, my life really sucks. I had something really bad happen in my life, so it's a shitty life. Versus, wow, I had something really traumatic happen and I was able to overcome it. And this is what I created from it. Very different energies. And that's access to divine intelligence of what you're allowing to come through you and out of your mouth.
So as I listen to that, I'm reminded a bit of my favorite dude from psychology, who's Carl Jung.
Yes, I love Carl Jung.
Oh yeah, okay. So he talked a lot about the collective unconscious.
Yes, so that would be similar.
Similar, but not okay. So let's talk. Okay, so
They're in the same group. So let's say divine intelligence is the collective consciousness, but let's say or the collective unconscious, what you just verified, that would be when you are unaware that you are functioning in a suffering or pain or toxic patterning. And most of the collective is doing that. Divine intelligence is when you start to choose to become aware that there's greater things available to you. You have access to greater information. You have access to a greater way of being. And you can shift from unconscious collective to a collective divine intelligence that we all can start to receive.
Okay, so universal knowledge. I'm sure that there's a tremendous overlap between a lot of these things.
Yeah, so universal knowledge would be much like the collective consciousness. So everything that we all have access to. Again, the difference between collective consciousness versus divine intelligence is like knowledge that's been created from source that we can all have, where like the knowledge is just something where are people functioning and how do we get people shifting.
Shifting from what to what, incidentally?
Shifting from pain into bliss, shifting from unconscious to conscious, shifting from letting life happen to you for letting life happen as you.
Oh, I've never heard. Oh, wow. I've heard the distinction, Byron Katie talks about a lot. Life isn't happening to us, it's happening for us. But you said it, you didn't say that.
No, so there's 4 levels of consciousness. And so the first one is life happens to us. Second is life happens for us. Third, life happens with us. Fourth, life happens as us. And so again, back to divine intelligence, this was information that I was born with. This is information that has been studied, researched, and it was gifted or given to me as my evolution as a person happens, as I switched from unconscious collective to divine knowledge and divine intelligence. And we all can do this process. And so life, as we'll get into it, what I've had with cancer, and also an unhealthy relationship, which led to an unplanned pregnancy, which I let go of. Like those things, I could have just had them happen to me and been unaware about it, but I made it very conscious, and I've made it a very beautiful alchemy in my life to redefine what that even means.
So so let's stay with that first, because I still want to I want to ask about psychic downloads, telepathic communication, clairvoyant and clairtransient intuition. But what is the major distinction between 1 and number 4? Life is happening to me versus life is happening as me. As me?
Yep. So life, when it's happening to you, it feels like the world is against you. It feels like shit. Like, how is this happening? Like, why is this my life? I'm going like this. I got to keep getting up and going to this job because I got to save this money in my 401k. I've never maybe heard of passive income, what I could do to even start saving money to invest it somewhere to start receiving from it. That's to you. As you is when you truly are being authentically who you are in every moment, and then things just happen into your reality. An example I can give of this is probably about a week ago, I was walking down the street and this black thing fell from the sky, and I was like, oh, it's probably a bird, but I'll like see. It was like half a mile in front of me. And I go up there and it wasn't a bird. It was a book called The Lost Symbol by Dan, who wrote the Da Vinci Code. And this man is very spiritual. He's known to have these very like mystic books. And it's no surprise that this book fell from the sky. Literally, I mean, there was nothing. I thought it was a bird. That is life happening as you. Things don't really happen to you. Like literally, as you are walking through life, things just start coming in towards you. And the power of social media, when you're acting in alignment, social media could just be happening to you. I feel disconnected, or it could be happening as an extension of you, that you're meeting new people in a community that's allowing you to flourish and allowing you to create income, allowing you to make connectivity happen, and allowing you to be who it is you're meant to be.
Again, I'm reminded of Carl Jung and his discussion or his work on synchronicity.
Yes.
Right, and or as Deepak says, the instantaneous and inextricable connectedness to all across space-time. So, psychic downloads. What do we got there?
Yeah. So the other thing with psychic downloads is that we all are psychic, and some people are like, oh, this sounds crazy. Like, what are you talking about? So what I want you to think about is think of a time when you kind of predicted the future. Like when you're like, I knew I was going to be mad at my partner. I knew this was my car was going to get hit, or I knew I was going to lose the keys, so I put them here, and you didn't listen to yourself, and then the thing happened. that's you being psychic. Or the thing when you have a knowing in your body, like, I know that I'm meant to get this promotion. I know that this is going to happen. Like, I'm just not worried about it because I know I just know because I know. That is your psychic ability. That is you tapping into a future timeline and then knowing it in the now. And this can also cause anxiety and fights with partners or relationships because you're seeing something that someone may betray you or someone may do something, not intentionally, but you're seeing a future reality that hasn't yet happened. And it's causing a bunch of confusion because you're like, whoa. And then the thing happens and you're like, whoa, I just knew that.
Does everybody have that experience?
Deja vu?
Oh, so is deja vu a psychic download?
It could be, it's a part of it, not always. There's different parts of psychic download, but these are different ways that you can receive information. But we all do it all the time unconsciously. And when you start to do it consciously, your life accelerates.
Okay, so you're saying we all have this psychic ability?
All of us. Everything that I'm talking about, we all have access to.
Oh, that's fascinating. All right. Telepathic communication.
So this is when you know someone, and depending how close you are with them, but you can actually communicate to people from your mind. So you can we have an energetic field around us. This is measured in a Hertz frequency. Our body is actually measured in a Hertz frequency. So it's a science. But there's an energetic field around each of us. And so what we can do, there's different ways to communicate. You can actually telepathically, energetically say, I have an intention that I desire someone to receive this message, this thing, this whatever. And you can send that to them. Or like, my team is a mess, or I really need this customer service thing to get taken care of, but I don't have time to call them. Like, you can send this message out into the universe from your head to somebody, to something. And as soon as you send that thought out intentionally, it's already working in the way. And that's when like someone texts you or someone calls you and you're like, I was just thinking about you. I was just like, how did you do that? Because you telepathically put an energetic meme out there for the energy to come to you.
Interesting. Energetic meme. Yeah. I absolutely believe in all of this. In fact, there's a machine, right, a device called the electroencephalograph that actually, and I don't know if it measures in hertz. I guess that's what it is, because it's measuring the frequency of your vibe or your thinking, right? And then there's a bunch of such really cool research that some people call quantum weirdness, or weirdness at a distance, or instantaneous accessibility of information. No, all right. So I don't want to go down that slippery slope, but that's fascinating. So, and all of us have these skills. What's the difference? First of all, what is clairvoyant and what is clairsentient intuition?
Yeah. So there's like clairaudio, clairvoyance, which is the 5 senses, right? So each of us have different ways that we can see things. Some people taste, like they can taste energy, like people can be somewhere. So a client of mine, this is really interesting. She was actually she was doing this job as a waitress. She needed some extra money, and she was at her restaurant, and there was a guy there, and she could taste, like just by looking at him, that he was going through depression, and she knew what depression tasted like, and that this guy was literally like something, he might harm himself. And so she let someone know. She let someone know, and she's like, hey, you guys, I think we might want to like say something to him, you know, like I think there's just not something going on. And they were like, no, like it's fine. And then he actually hung himself that night in their small town. And so she tastes things. So that's one thing. So then you have clairaudio, which is.
And I'm not being disrespectful. Hold on, let's stay with that for a second. I'm being very sincere. Did she happen to articulate at all what that taste was like?
She has, like, she's told me what like it was, but she has like different ones. Like even when she was a child, here's another example. She was with her dad and her mom, and they were going somewhere, and she tasted that there was a car accident. She tasted there was a woman dead inside it. And they were like, no, it's not, just a random car. A week later, the newspaper heading showed up that there was a dead woman found in the car. And she said her dad almost fell out of his chair because she was like 8 years old. And so she was like tasting this, like tasted it. And so her whole life, she can taste happiness, she can taste joy, but she can, when you're around, she can taste these things. And so she has like described it to me, but each one is a little bit different based on the energy she is and based on her energy. That's not a skill that I've yet, I guess, chosen to embody or go after, but that's something that's very natural for her. So you have clairaudio, which is hearing, clairsentiment, which is feeling. So you can like feel someone's energy. Clairvoyant, which you can see. Smell is another one, and then feeling.
So you can see and you can feel. And you mentioned something about that.
We can do them all. We all can do them all. Those are the 2 that I specialize in.
Yeah, okay. Oh. when you say you specialize in them, is that because these came naturally to you, or
Yeah. So like
did you like
when I
exercise these skills so that you've strengthened that ability so you could now utilize them in your work,
So those were
your
the two that
life?
were always really natural to me. So even when I was a little girl, and this is actually why I got cancer. When I was a little girl, I would always see light and angels. Like I would be doing exams like on the paper, and I would never study for exams. I'm getting my PhD now, and I have my master's, and I've never really studied ever. And how I've done so well in school is because there's literally light that's on the paper, or I can see patterns of energy that are like focusing, or there'll be like angels that come and share with me what to share to support me in my mission. And so even when I was little, like I'd be out playing soccer or basketball, and I would like know where to move based on where light was going. It had nothing to do with the basketball or nothing to do with friends. And so I would tell people about this because my kids would be like, how do you know the answer to this? Like you never study, or like, how do you know to go there? And I'm like, I don't know, like the light's there. You guys don't see it. Like this thing is really real. It's right there. And they're like, no, I don't see it. Like I don't, whatever. And so I stopped speaking my truth about it. And that's why I actually got thyroid cancer on my throat, to let the universe like through me know that I need to start speaking my truth.
Wow, to that. Yeah, well, I want to share an observation with you because a lot of this stuff, I'm pretty sure that, a lot of people will hear you discuss this and go, where are the crystals and the incense and she and Sedona, like this is woo woo nonsense. But I love the way that you speak very authoritatively and from like a calm, not boastful, but an expert space on all this. And I think that that's really damn important, because I want to come into this interview as a student of you. What you're describing makes life sound a shitload easier. What, right? Like I would like to never study
Yeah.
and crush my exams in a PhD program. That sounds handy.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to know, I'd like to be able to access information, to have access to all kinds of information, to create excellence, to solve problems, to play well. It sounds
And we
very
all,
handy.
yeah. Well, the thing is, and I love that you're bringing this up, is that we all always are doing this. It's whether we're doing it consciously or unconsciously. And one thing that I love about your success equation, which equals clarity plus courage plus discipline. So a big thing that I teach is clarity. I say, like, everyone who knows me, like, what are you really going to receive? You will absolutely, I'll put myself hands down, best in the world. You will have clarity of why you're here, like no one else in the world. Don't care what CEO you are. Don't care if you're literally just someone who's on the street living. I will provide it 100% of the time. And what I love that you're sharing, the reason that I've asked is because I intentionally ask for information. I say, okay, God, this person is in front of me. Okay, God, I have this goal. Let me feel it in my body, or let me have a sign of where I'm meant to get the answer for this. Let me know how this is meant to happen. And I may not always like the answer. There may be like, Google this or type this up, or someone pops up in your inbox and you're like, what the hell? And it doesn't really make sense to you. And it makes you feel uncomfortable. But that's actually God answering your prayer. And the more that you get in this habit of just asking for these things, and the more that you allow it to be that easy, the quicker you can drop the struggle, the quicker you can drop, let's say, having to be tough. Yes, you need a toughness, but you can actually have a softness integrated in you for your hustle to really quantumly expand the results.
Okay, so I don't want to. Okay, let's stay with this. I do want to hear, if it comes up naturally in the rest of our dialogue. What do you have a definition of mental toughness? But I want to force that right now. You do?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I have two questions. What is it? But the other one is, how do we strengthen these skills? So pick one.
Yep. So we'll start with, how do you strengthen these skills? So I want to share a story with all of you. So I was in corporate right out of college. So I had cancer at age 14. I very much believed that I needed money to have love and money to not die. The reason that I believed this is because when I was in a hospital, there was a little girl and her dad yelled at her mom. And I'll never forget this for the rest of my life. It makes me emotional still. He said, the only reason that we are in a position to not pay for our daughter's treatment is because you're a stay-at-home mom. And in that moment in time, I had no idea what imprint that left on my brain or my psyche. But I went into Michigan State University. I was a marketing major and I went into sales. I had paid internships since the age of age 17. I remember getting my first $5,000 check and being like, this is so much money at like 18 years old.
Yeah.
I remember being like, oh my God, like that seemed like so much then. And I graduated and I worked for a $23 billion company. I got to travel all over the US. I got to live in Texas, Arizona, and Baltimore, Maryland. And I was a very different woman then. I was very much hustle. If you look at me, I look 30 and I was 23. I'm 26 now and I look like I'm 23. Like I've literally reversed my aging, and I'll talk about this, but what I want to share with you guys, I had no idea about any of these things. The moment that my life changed was the moment I closed my largest sales deal with $800,000 at the time. I called my partner and I was like so excited because if I'm making money, love should work. And my partner was just neutral, nothing. And I came
your partner,
home.
what do you mean your partner?
My boyfriend.
Okay, gotcha.
I called him to tell him because I was like so excited, but there was already problems in the relationship. But I was like, oh my God, I just made money. Like this love should work now. And so I called him and just neutral. And so I will never forget, that was the moment I came home and I crashed on the couch and I'm just bawling. It was this blue couch in Baltimore. I'm like literally laying there out the window looking at this like gray sky. And I'm like, what do you want me to do, God? Why am I here? Like, I really don't understand. And I got this download. And I didn't even know that word at the time. Like I would not have put that word, but there was something in my body that said download. Okay. Idea, you could be another one. I got in this idea, but this thing in my body, like I just knew I had to take action right then. It said, go up, grab your laptop and Google visas. And so I literally Googled visas living in another country as American, because I thought, even though I traveled to 20 something countries at that time, I thought to live international, you needed a corporation or you needed a higher education. Like, because America makes it seem so crazy with visas. Like that was my programming, even though I'd already traveled a bunch of places. So I Google this and it comes out New Zealand, top one, $20 visa for 1 year. So I was like, what? So I literally like go, I apply right then and it was approved within 48 hours. And I go, this is crazy, but I'm going to quit my job where I'm making 6 figures, a company car. I had healthcare. For those of you who have cancer or pre-existing conditions know that it'd be crazy. Like it's crazy to give up healthcare at that time because we didn't have pre-existing conditions like approved then. And I'm like, that's it. I'm freaking doing this. Like, and I moved across the world to New Zealand, didn't know anyone. And within 4 weeks, I got a job with a $400 million company. This is when I started to understand manifestation, law of attraction. And I went back to corporate. I did yoga for 4 hours, like a day, meditation and yoga while I was working. And it finally started clicking that there was something more to life. Like there was something higher. There's just something here. And I left that corporate world forever of January 2018. And I was like, I just know I'm meant to impact the world. Like, I just know that I'm meant to help people. I just know that there's just this thing and I cannot keep living this life. Like I'm going to die. Like, and I kept looking my life at like 30, 40. And I was like, this can't be it. Like, I'm going to die of like, literally, I already had something in my throat. There's going to be like a heart attack or something at a young age. Like something's got to give. And I went to a retreat in April of 2018. And that was the first time I understood that there's a difference between your soul, your mind, and your body. And from that space of April of 2018, that's when all of this language that, like you said, I would have had no idea started for me. And if you read my first book, Live Your Truth, I don't have any of this language, but This is something I've evolved into. And there's no way 2.5 years ago, I would be like, you're crazy. What are you talking about? Like, I would say that. But the reason that I hit $100,000 my first year in business was because of these gifts. The reason that I'm growing my business exponentially is because of these gifts. It's because it's not just on logic. The reason I've written 3 books in 3 years and I've done my master's in 2.5 years of a business is because I'm using these gifts.
Okay, so how do we strengthen them?
You have to get yourself in new environments. You have to get yourself in new people. And that's why I truly, truly believe in these online programs and social media and getting into people that are talking on YouTube, on podcasts like you are, imprinting your mind with different things, literally changing the neural pathways of how your brain thinks. So For an example, I had no idea that I had this belief that I had to have money to have love and money to not die. It wasn't until I was doing yoga and meditation, so that's a huge one I always address with meditation or working out to get understanding the thoughts in your mind, that there was an imprint. And an imprint is something that unconsciously is placed on us by our parents, by society, that I had to have this happen. The moment that I became aware of that, and I was like, whoa, so I'm forcing myself to do a job just because I think that's going to make me have love. Mind blown, mind warped. And that was the first time I go, there is more to this. If this is just one, how many more layers can I peel back into my potentiality of what's been imprinted on me, which is not true. So another example, way to strengthen this. I don't have any TVs in my house because television is a vision. The world is telling you a vision. It's called programming because the programs are programming your mind. So what is it that you are allowing your whole life, compounded like finance, to program you? And what are the things you're listening to, rap music? What are the things that you're hearing? What are the things about business, the things about money, the things about relationships that are ingrained in your psyche that are actually limiting you to thrive?
You're not a fan of rap music?
I mean, some rappers I love. There's actually a really good lady that I just got sent on SoundCloud. It was hilarious, but no, I love it. It's
No,
just,
I know what you mean, but it's like some. In other words,
yeah,
what am I exposing myself to? What are the messages? All right. So what you're saying then is becoming very, very mindful of, well, what you're letting in.
exactly. And if you ask any CEO of any major company, I'm sure if you ask Steve Jobs, if you worked with the CFO, if you ask Bill Gates, like if you ask any of them, Jeff Bezos, what is the biggest thing you can do is become aware of you and become a PhD of yourself. Like become a master of you. How do you function? What makes you tick? What environments, what conversations should you not be in? Like there are people I know I cannot be around. And it's not bad. It's not mean. It's just because it brings out a toxic part of me. And a great example of this might be if people have addictions, why would you go to the bar? That just doesn't make sense if you're trying to heal yourself. That's a bad environment. So what environments are you tolerating? Are you allowing yourself in that are hindering you from the greatest potential you know that you could live into? And the specific skill set you want, like what we've said, psychic abilities, understanding downloads, meditation, neurofeedback, what you said, like measuring hertz frequency of your thoughts, working out, what food you're eating. There's so many avenues for it, but those tactical parts will come when you get clear of like, what is it I actually want? And then from that space, you'll know, like I knew I had to Google visas. I couldn't even make that story up if I tried.
Right. Oh, by the way, I mentioned earlier, I said something incorrect. I was talking about the device that measures the frequency of our thinking. I think I called it an electroencephalograph. It's not. It's a magnetoencephalograph, just FYI.
But even I'm just saying, if someone wanted that, like if that's a skill set, like I think a lot of times we get so focused on I need to obtain a team learning skill set, or I need to obtain an electromagnetic or a six pack or whatever that it is that I need to obtain. We get so focused on this tactical thing that does that actually fall into what we want? And is that actually what we're feeling? Or are we forcing ourselves, pushing ourselves to do something that we think will bring a desired result? Just like I thought having a job with great money would bring me love. What is that thing? But I was doing something that didn't even make sense with the direction of what I really wanted. And so many times I've been programmed to not think and just do something.
When you mentioned the woman who was able, even as a child, to taste, did you say energy?
Mm-hmm.
What do you got there? That's one hell of
Kombucha.
That's a big ass kombucha.
It is.
That's aggressive kombucha right there. I mean, you are all in on that.
Yes.
That is the biggest kombucha bottle I've ever seen in my damn life.
I love it. But anyway, my client who could taste things.
Okay, she's a client of yours. Yeah. What was that called again?
Claire, let me think about this. Claire Taste or no? Let me think about it. I forget the name of that one.
There's a name. Okay, so something that has to do with like the
yeah.
Olfactory. No, that's whatever taste sense.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you're interested? Like, would you like to be able to do that? To have that skill set?
I don't feel like it's relevant for me. There may be a time in my life, maybe that I will feel like it's relevant for me, but it's just always been natural for me to see things and for me to feel things. So if it became something where God, for whatever reason, or source or universe was like, hey, Colleen, this would be really helpful for you, then I feel like it would be easy. But I'm a big proponent, like you said, of let life be simple. I'm not going to force myself to learn something or do something just to add it to my toolbox.
As people open up their minds to these skill sets, I don't know if that's the word you use to describe these abilities or gifts, right? And I want to just make a request of everybody listening and or watching this is like, for the sake of being goddamn amazing, let's just like all be in the assumption that every one of these is a natural, everything that you've discussed, right, is a natural skill that we all have access to. And being able to exercise these skills, they're like superpowers. I mean, seriously, these are like superpowers.
They are.
Right? Okay. I want to get better at psychic downloading. Tell me how to do it.
Yeah, so you actually are someone who's really, really powerful at downloads. I don't even know if you know it. So when you look at your website, which is actually really beautiful, and we talked about this a little bit before, you are very masculine, which I really love about you, because if you would put you and I in a room normally, there would be every reason why we couldn't get along. Like if you look on paper. And what I love about this is that these abilities that I'm talking about is actually the root of what brings us together. Because you downloaded this equation, success equals clarity plus courage plus discipline. You were actually called a wizard, which I talked about as well, by the CFO of Apple. And for those of, I have my own Oracle deck, or guidance deck, or affirmation deck, any of those words. But a lot of people say I'm a wizard. Like I pull a card for you and I share what it means. And so you actually do these things all the time, but how disciplined you are and the intention you have for the clarity and impact of your downloads is up to you. So for an example, if I'm going to open my laptop, I'm going to say my intention is to be focused. My intention is to reply to this email and this email. If I open social media, my intention is to have an inbox of warm, exciting potential clients or warm people that are asking for questions about my services or products. My intention is that anytime I post on social media, like a photo of my content, I always have amazing feedback. I always love what I hear. It's impacting people's lives. I get to hear amazing stories of how it initiated people into another consciousness. This is a download, or an intentionality, I guess, for downloads to be happening. So just like if you're someone, you're like, I want to quit my job. Okay, so how do I receive the download of how that's going to happen? If I sit there and try to logically figure out, well, I need this much money, this much passive income, now I'm bored. I'm like, okay, this is too logic. So what I like to do is, okay, I have a job, which I had twice, and I knew that I wanted to move to New Zealand, that I wanted to start my own company. God, how are we going to make this happen? Okay, you're going to write a book. What? A book? Are you crazy? I don't even know how to write a book. And so I'm like, okay. So I'm like, I'm going to sit in front of my computer. All right, God, tell me what you want me to write. And I just every day would sit there, put the date, and I would write.
Which book is this?
My first book. I've written.
We'll get to it. Your third one, but which one?
Yeah, my third one. This is my first book.
Can you even see that? I don't think you can see that, right?
I have it right here. Live Your Truth.
I know, but there you go. Oh, that's the first one, right?
Mm-hmm. This is the first one, and then this is the second one.
There, I put it up there.
Oh, cool! An Uncompromised Life. Yeah. So it's the first one, second one, and the third one's coming.
This is the third one. Well, it's available. We'll get to that.
Yes. But what you're saying, how do you have these downloads? Is that understanding that the thoughts in your head are always giving you ideas. Okay, like here's another way to say it. Have you ever been in a store? All of us have had this happen. You're like, I had totally thought of that product or that thing like years ago, and now it finally just got here. That was a download that you didn't act on, but someone else from the infinite cloud got that same message and they acted on it, and they created the financial impact and wealth that you didn't because you didn't take the action.
Okay. All right. So
we all always have downloads. Is that like that's like as many examples as I can kind of give in ways, but it's not like this. What's interesting in this process that I'm sharing with you, it's not tactical like what we've been trained to think of 2 + 2 is 4. It's not tactical like that, because when you're there is logic, but when you're tactically only doing that, you're losing the point of being a human, which is connection and feeling. And to feel and connect, it's not logic. So when you allow yourself to be guided in a way from feeling, from connection, then, wow, I really feel this. Wow, I have this idea. An idea isn't logic. It's not like, how did I randomly think of that? Like, it just happened, it just came to you. It just was there. Like, just like the sun rises. And then how you act on that idea, that becomes the tangible part.
I know I'm going to keep hammering this question because I'm so committed to, like, even if there was nobody in the world listening to this ever, it was just me and you talking about this, I'd still be saying this exactly the same way, which is like, I need some more specifics. Like, I'm excited to hear about this. Like, first of all, I love that you're normalizing some stuff that would, I think a lot of people would consider to be very ethereal.
Mm-hmm.
And you're unapologetic about it. And I love that. And you're obviously, it's so obvious from the language and the passion with which you use the language, you're an expert at this. And you're speaking from that place, which is badass. So props to you, boom. And so my favorite combination in life is simple, profound. And I know that simple and profound is in all this, but I ain't getting it yet. So I need your help some more. Right?
Go.
So, all right. What are some things that I could be practicing? Delete. What are some things that you consciously, very intentionally, purposefully, even if we've already mentioned some of them, practice on a daily basis that helps you strengthen these skill sets, the ability to tap in?
The biggest thing, journaling. Journaling is huge. Like, having a journal that you go to either in the morning, throughout the day, that you just write. And there's many times I have a thing in my phone, notes as well. I'll be driving, I'll be at the thing. Like, the other day I was driving actually, and my one of my team members, he was the first text message in my thing, and I was like, I'm sorry, I'm just messaging you because the first of my message, and I like messaged him this long thing. I was like, I know it's not relevant for you, but anyway, thanks for being here. And he typed back, he's like, this is why we love you. And like, it's just like, you have these things that come through you, and you got to capture them. What you can't say, if it's 2 a.m., oh, that dream happened, I'll go back to sleep and remember it tomorrow. No, right then you got to capture it. When you're at the store and you're like, oh, I have this idea, right then text yourself. I don't care if you have to write it on your arm, do the thing. When you have this thing, you've got to capture it, because the moment that you have the language in your mind, and then the moment you write it down or say it, it becomes a reality. Like, let me give you an example. When I was leaving New Zealand, and I didn't really want to say loved New Zealand, but I knew I was meant to travel the world. In my first year of business, I hit 13 countries. And I remember I sat there, and this would be something I would be like, God, I demand that this work works. I demand that you give me this. And people would be like, wow, Colleen, that's really intense, like demanding of God. And I'm like, but he gave me this, and I showed up in the process. So I felt like I wanted to demand that I was able to get the results that I wanted to really see, to like really let the story be an example of what's possible. And so, like, being in that mindset of like, this is crazy, like, you have to be okay to be crazy. And I literally did a live yesterday about that. Like, that sounds, and I know women have a lot of things about that, but I'm okay with that. I've learned to be okay. I remember, this is a story I'll share with you, and this is tactful as well, but there was this guy in Hawaii, and I was like on this thing, and he was like, I really want to take you to dinner. And I was like, okay, you can take me to dinner. I was like, but I'm just going to let you know that like, I'm a little bit crazy. And he's like, isn't that bad for a woman to say that? I'm like, well, it's better than being boring. He's like, absolutely, dinner it is. And like, we did that. And so like, I feel like these things I'm telling you, like, you've got to just know to write it down. You've got to be able to.
That was it. That occurred in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Where? But just.
That was in Maui.
And where did you go to dinner?
I forget. I was staying at the Marriott, so it was like a place down the street or whatever.
Was it in Lahaina?
Yeah, I think it was.
I'm so psychic. I know all this shit.
Yay! No.
I'm getting better already. I'm getting better just by talking to you.
You are. So, but
it wasn't Bubba Gump shrimp though.
No.
Okay.
I forget the name of it, but it was like a couple years ago. But had these downloads that you get, like the moment you get it, like when I knew, like I was so upset about this deal, and like my boyfriend at the time not being excited, like I knew right then when it was like, you need to Google visas, I needed to Google visas right then. It wasn't like 5 hours, and it was right then.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's sharpening that skill set. Like, you know, when you get that thing of like, I know I need to call someone, or like this client, or maybe like someone messaged me, but I don't need to reply to that. I want to impulsively, but I don't need to reply to it right now. That is a download. And to get better at it is when you practice it, just as when you show up to the gym. I can tell you, okay, show up to the gym and do 5 push-ups. You're like, what? But obviously over time, you're like, 5 push-ups, what? That's like breathing air. What are you talking about? This is the same type of thing. And so here's another example. If you're in a corporate position, let's say, and you feel like that you don't like some things that are happening in the organization, but you know that you can't just keep emailing about it. So you go, okay, I have an idea. I'm going to have a download list of things that I really like and things that I don't like. And then when it's the meeting or year end, I'll have this compiled list over the year instead of having to remember the whole time. So now when you show up to your meeting, or when you show up to whatever that it is, you have a compounded list of things you've loved and a compounded things you don't like, but it happened right in the moment. So the energy frequency that was written down and that you'll be sharing is more potent than you going, let me think and remember and and miss things that were actually really important to you, because everything comes back to an energy. So the moment you capture the energy of downloads, of things coming through you, that moment is the most powerful moment. And that is a practice. That's why they call yoga a practice. That's why they call going to the gym practice, working out, practice for the game. You are practicing for your vision. So psychic abilities. We all have visions. We all have an idea, whether it's even you just want to be a wife or a mom or a dad, or, you know, what, we all have a vision of what we want for our life. And sometimes I believe we don't dream big enough. But these things that we know, like I know I'm meant to be a CEO, or I know that I'm meant to just be like a, you know, mid-level worker, but an extraordinary dad. And I know I'm meant to be a jewelry person, or whatever your dreams are, whatever that are, is like, that's a future vision. And the more that you allow yourself to tap into what would that future reality look like if I was the jewelry maker, if I was this like excellent dad, like what would it look like if maybe I could retire 10 years earlier to have just that time with my kids? What kind of things do I do? Let me Google. How do I have extra money in the bank? Oh, wow. Okay, so I thought I had 20 years left of working. How can I get that by 10? Okay, passive income. What investment opportunities could I have? So if I have some money coming in and I save for this amount of time, basic math starts to happen. And like, whoa, maybe I could do this and be like the stay-at-home dad that I always wanted, or stay-at-home mom. And you start to play with energy based on what you knew that you really always desired for you, because you saw the future vision, which is psychic abilities.
So a couple things that I'm hearing from you, getting back to, or staying with actually the question, how do I strengthen these skills? How do I get better?
So journaling, one, writing it down.
Well, actually, if I'm hearing you correctly, actually journaling comes second to something else, which is slow the hell down and pay attention.
Yes.
Like, what are you going to journal? You're going to journaling what you're noticing, but you got to notice shit.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so actually, I think there's a third thing.
Yeah.
Journaling is the third thing. Noticing is the second thing. And the first thing is what we mentioned before, which is opening up, like embracing this as, yeah, this is not weird. This is not foo-foo. This is unbelievable. This is a super, these are superhuman powers that we all have access to, for God's sake, that make life easier. Let's like be cool with that.
Yeah. And I'm going to go into this. I didn't mention before. So when I had cancer, it was told for me that I'd be on medication for the rest of my life. And that when I wanted to have children, it would be very challenging for me. The moment, and I'll tell you this, I went to Western Medical Field. I was in Baltimore, Maryland, and I was like, moving to New Zealand for, I don't know how long. Can I have at least a year of medication? I don't know when I'll be back. And when I come back to America, I don't even know if I can do the healthcare if I don't have a job. And so I remember this, and he started going, I think we need to take out your other half of your thyroid. And I was like, we haven't done surgery on me in over 9 years. Why would we take out my other thyroid? And I was like, this is a business. You're not trying to sell me. And now I'm done. And he's like, I see I'm getting nothing out of you. He's like, you probably need a mammogram. I was like, again, you've already lost me. Done, complete. From that moment in life, when I got on the plane to New Zealand, I had one doctor appointment that I made in New Zealand. My hormone levels have always been neutral ever since that day. The moment that I left corporate and followed my dream, and the moment that I decided I was never going to buy into the business of the medical field. Next portion, that should be impossible. When you're looking at, I have half of the thyroid, it's hyper. I had a second surgery because there was a lymph node in my jugular vein. Should not be possible. Shouldn't happen. And it's happened. And then fast forward 2.5 years, I was co-created. When some of these gifts got brought online, there's something called codependency, which many of us have without realizing it. And I talk about this with how it was passed from my mom, and there's generational lineage. So it means that when we're born, both of our parents, this is biology, when they have, there's certain traits that they have that we receive. This also means characteristic traits. So a big trait that was on my mom's side was people pleasing and codependency. And so I got into this with spiritual gifts of like, I can help all these people and I can help and move energy and do this. And so I attracted a very dark narcissistic man, which ended up, I should have left multiple times, but I couldn't, or I shouldn't say, I like physically couldn't. I tried so many times, but there was like so much. So I ended up with an unplanned pregnancy on no thyroid medication, which is not possible because your thyroid controls all the hormones in your body. And when you look at what I'm talking about, those are impossible. Both those things should not happen. They're taught logically cannot happen. So if I tried to logically do this, it wouldn't have happened. The only way that it's happened is because of this and because of these gifts I'm talking to you about. And I did let the child go, but in a very beautiful way, the world showed me the name Ella. So one is right after I let the child go, 3 days later, I was down in my apartment building and there was a little girl and I was like, oh, sweetie, what's your name? And she was like, my name is Ella. And her mom was like, your name's not Ella, it's Leela. And I was like, oh my God. And before I went in to actually take the pill of it, there was a little girl in front of me. And I'll never forget, because this was like right before I went in, and I could feel my soul, the daughter of my soul. And even though the egg was only in me for 6 days, that it was like known, 3 days, I knew I went into the clinic and they were like, no, you have to wait longer. I was like, no, I know. Again, back to intuitive, like I knew, like before doctors did. And I went back and they were right. This little girl's in front of me. And I was like, oh my God, like I was going to have a daughter. Like I knew it. And this little girl then confirms for me 3 days later, her name was Ella instead of Leela. The dad came over one day and gave me a toy uniform. I told him it was a miscarriage because of my own healing process. And he gave it to me and I said, what do you want to name this keychain? And he said, name it Elle. And I said, did you say Elle like Ella? And he was like, yeah. And I almost fainted. Like I thought I was going to literally fall out of my head. Like, and I finally call my mom as I'm writing the book and I tell her like, hey, I have this story to tell you. And so I tell her the story and she goes, you know, whose name was Ella? And there's a part in chapter 4 of my book, I talk about generational lineage, which is this concept I'm sharing with you. And I said, whose name was Ella, Mom? And she goes, my mom's best friend's name was Ella and she had no kids and was never married. And so through this decision of my life, it proved the point of that I was stopping the generational lineage. If I would have been having a child to please this man because of what society has said, not because it was what I wanted and I knew it was not best for the child. And in that, if I were to logically try to even make that story up, I couldn't.
Right. You know, you also said in your bio that cancer and many other diseases occur in the body only when we are not living in alignment with who source/God/universe desires us to be.
Mm-hmm.
That's a bold statement.
Yeah. When you think about it, I think of my own life. Why did I get cancer? God gave me these beautiful gifts as a little girl. He let me imagine and let me see these things. And sure, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe none of it's real. And I'm fine with that. Maybe that's what it is. But I know for a fact it's real to me. And I know that it's real in my body. And the reason that I got cancer was because God gave me this beautiful ability to see people, to see light, to see how incredible this world really, really is. And I got shunned for it. And so I stopped talking about it as a little girl. And so why did my throat get cut twice? On every part of my body that I could have got cancer as a little girl. Because I wasn't speaking. Why with this? The biggest thing that's like something that's so important in like someone's life, why did this happen in my space is because the deepest thing I really wanted is to fall in love. And I thought you needed money to have love and money to not die. And I created my own business. I did these things. And I feel like I was like, I finally found it. It was love. Like it was this magical thing. But the thing about narcissism is that they really just steal your energy and they're just reflecting back to you who you really are. So it's beautiful because I've now learned I really fell in love with myself. But in that process of what I'm sharing with you is I became pregnant many times. I knew I was meant to leave. Like I tried to break up, it's not good. Like, it's not good. Like I tried, there was like so much. And when you're in such a toxic environment and you're like trying, but some energy keeps coming and you're not strong enough again in your voice, because what was my biggest wound was to really be in love. And from that, I should not, if you ask any medical doctor, that should not have happened. It can't, like, not, that doesn't make sense. Her hormones don't allow that to happen. She's not on any supplemental hormones. And so when you look at that, it is crazy. It is something. And so I wasn't acting in alignment with God, with source, with universe. I was being distracted by allowing myself to have love, which wasn't really love from God. And it cost me my initiation into motherhood in a way that I didn't imagine. But I always knew. I always knew, even when I was younger, like I'd always tell my parents, I'm going to adopt a child. I'm going to adopt a child. And so I know that I've met the soul of this child. I'll be adopting her. And like all my friends I lived with, it's so funny. I lived with 5 guys my last semester of college, all of us just really good friends. And I messaged them because some of them, like, they're more logical. Like one of them's in the military, like very much like this is crazy stuff normally to them. And I go, you guys, this is the cover of my 3rd book. And I got my story of why I knew I was adopting. Every single one of them were like, Colleen, I totally feel you. And I can't wait to meet your daughter. People that even think this stuff is crazy, when you read this story, when you hear the story of what I'm sharing with like the name Ella, and there's so much more to it, but it's actually not that crazy. And I think we let ourselves think that these magical miracles of life, because it's what God really wanted, we go, that's too crazy. That can't make sense. But the reality is God works on miracles and magic, and God allows you to have that. And so the sooner you tap into these abilities, when that's actually not that crazy. That's actually not that wild to think that. That's actually not that crazy to think that I could make $1 million in my life. It's actually not that crazy to think, well, I'm meant to retire in 20 years, but could I somehow make passive income through real estate or through this to make it 10 years and have 10 extra years with my kid? That's actually not that crazy. If that was a thought in your mind and you allowed yourself to write that down, and then allowed yourself to go, okay, let me start seeing what patterns I can pick up. Or if you even allow yourself, like, I know that I'm meant to drive a Range Rover or a Porsche. I don't know. I don't even know cars, but whatever. That's your idea. That's your download. Or I'm meant to have a jewelry company, or I'm meant to have t-shirts of swag from Mental Toughness. And that probably sounded crazy 10 years ago. What are you talking about, swag? That's not that crazy. Like, it's not that thing. You had an idea, you had it down.
Very real.
Yeah, like, and even saying living above the old line, like people would be like, what are you talking about? That's crazy. Like, same thing, but it's actually not that crazy. You had a download, you had an idea, you became aware, and it actually was what God gave you to.
It's important. What you're saying, I think, is very important, is to not have it sound crazy. Not even necessarily not crazy, but it's like no crazier than I press a button on a plastic thing, and over there the TV changes channels, or I hit a button on a wall and the light turns on.
So if you were to think
that's
about
miraculous, but it's not crazy. It's like, and I'm kind of used to it. Like, I would like to be able to appreciate the new technologies. Like, I get electricity.
So, okay, so let's go here. So this is so beautiful. It's such a beautiful segue. So social media, computers, technology, right? God, source, universe, light, right? Light is so fast. It's the fastest moving thing that we can't see it. So a light bulb, even when you think about it, or if you think about technology, what is it? It's condensed light that is slowed down for us to see it. And so what you just talked about, unconsciousness, right? We unconsciously press a button. We unconsciously turn something on. But that's so ingrained in us as a collective, if we just do this, that it's part of our normal. So what are those things that we are doing like that we've made so normal that are actually toxic habits? Of, I'm not going to write that down. I'm not going to dream that. I'm not going to maybe declutter my space. I actually did feel like I was meant to call that person, but I didn't call them. And what do you know, 2 weeks later, they died of cancer. I didn't take the action on the thing if I knew I meant to call them. Or I was supposed to stop at that grocery store and, I don't know, get eggs, or I was supposed to stop at that plant thing on the side, or the fruit store. I don't know. And then I have a conversation and they just became a $20,000 client. these are the things that I'm talking about. Like when I had my hair, you didn't have now, but I had it half shaved on the right side. And so I'd always get
see that
designs
on your website.
Yeah. So I'd always get designs shaved in it. So I was in Italy and I went to this barber. I was in Italy for a month and I lived there. And this barber, I would go to them. And so anyway, I don't even know why I go to them, but I was walking down the street and I just walk in. And so normally I only had women cut my hair. But anyway, so he was like, I'm going to do it. We've got this. We're doing it. And so what do you know? Before you know it, they started carrying my books in their barbershop store in Italy. So I started making some money passively from that. And the next thing you know, before the last time I go, he gave me this little unicorn cup that said Namaste with a unicorn on it. And then before you know it, there was 2 people that became one-on-one clients that messaged me on Instagram through that. Cannot make it up. And this is the stuff I'm talking about. I didn't just sit there and go, how do I find clients today? No, I was out living my life and somebody said, you need to go into that barbershop. I felt it in my body, or there was this thing of like, I know I'm meant to be in Italy, or I know I'm meant to be in that flight. I don't know why, but I'm going to show up and do that. I'm going to stop logically trying to figure out why these things in my head are happening and just do it.
Trust it. You are the alchemist.
Kind of. People say that all the time. I do my first book. I say intoxicator. So someone who takes the time to look within, remove the toxic, and become what's left, their truth. And so that together, we can create the largest peaceful army of love to intoxicate the world together. Because when you look at what really causes a country to be successful on a global scale is if you have 2 countries who have a trade agreement. I talk about this in my second book. And a country doesn't do something right on the trade agreement, there is an international court system, but there's no international military. So the winner, no matter what you do, if you even disobey it, the winner is always who has the largest military. So what I truly, truly believe is that when we allow ourselves to look within, become aware, remove the toxic, do some of these things like yoga, meditation, working out, getting in new environments, getting in a new online course, starting to show up on social media, this allows us to really then attract a different life and allows us to rise up to a different frequency and energy where we won't need military to change the world.
I love that. So we won't need them. So military becomes obsolete. Okay, a couple last things. We never got to it. I thought we were going to get to it straight away, but we never did. But I'm still curious. How do you define mental toughness?
Yeah, so I wrote it down. So I actually feel like mental toughness, I love it, what I've said about you. You are very much a masculine pillar. I would say something that I used to be was more masculine. I've moved more into feminine. So very big in NLP language. I wouldn't yet necessarily use the word tough. Have shitty things happen in my life? Yes. Did I co-create each of those shitty things by toxic, unaware habits? Yes. And you always will have pain in your life, but the moment is when you choose to turn the pain into beauty, and you can see it, you can feel it, you can taste it. Because at every moment of trauma, at every moment of pain, there's simultaneously wisdom birth. And mental toughness to me is when you always are able to see the beauty and the wisdom that was simultaneously birthed from pain and heartbreak.
Booyah! Wow. I'm so freaking glad that I didn't just say, oh, we never got to it. Wow. That's spectacular. I'm totally stealing that.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. So, all right, you've got your third book out. Mm-hmm. Your books are on your website. The third one is fresh, hot off the press, and it's called An Uncompromised Life, which I think is a beautiful title. Why is that your title?
Yeah. So I really co-created a relationship where I compromised my character, and your character is always more important than your reputation or anything that you own. And I compromised that massively. And I pretended that I didn't have needs, wants, desires, because I so badly desired love. And I'm so grateful for it because I was able to go through the story I've gone through, and I've been able to know that I'm adopting my daughter. But this book is really for anyone who's gone through heartbreak, which we all have, and for anyone who's really carrying pain, which we all are carrying unconscious pain, unless we've really been committed, as I've just shared with you, my journey of 2.5 years to uncovering these things. And this book is an initiation into a journey that you couldn't even imagine. It's funny because as this book has been written and the more and more miracles that have come in my life, and even through my publisher and even through my friends, what's been adopted through this book is phenomenal. And so it's not just a book. Even when you buy it from me, it comes in a PR box, and there's a sacred geometry code. There's a velvet envelope that I have tinfoil with a letter on. You get a handwritten letter from me. The book is signed, and you get the Christella crystal from our crystal line on the left side of the PR box. So this is a journey. It's not just a book. No. And this is something that why I wrote it is my daughter and I wrote it together really as a healing journey, but it forever was my initiation into falling in love. And I think all of us deeply, deeply desire to fall in love, and we think we need another person for it. But sometimes all we need is just a moment of stillness, silence, and our thoughts being put out onto paper to realize that in our truest expression, we co-create a reality that shocks us. Not like, wow, profound.
So people, to get this book gift set, you can go to your website, which is colleengallagher.co. Right, not .com, .co. Colleen Gallagher, so COLLEENGALLAGHER.co. And they get all your books, but this one with all the stuff, with all the goodies. Excellent. And then at the time of this recording, because of an agreement, if I understand correctly, with your publisher, it is not available at this moment on Amazon, but it will be.
Yeah, June 8th, 2021 is when it will be on Amazon, but you can buy the package, The Journey, from me before then.
On the website.
So I definitely, recommend it. But I always say the best way you just listen to this, I honestly believe social media is a platform of connectivity. So when you come across this and there's any part of it you have questions on, please reach out to me on any channel through DM or Messenger. I'm super active on there. I love connecting. I love knowing who's out there, because this world, we're stronger together when we connect.
What's your Twitter or Instagram and Facebook? Let's just give those.
So my Instagram is I am Colleen Gallagher. My Facebook is just the Colleen Gallagher, and then my Twitter is call/Gallagher1.
Cool, and I'll put all that stuff in the show notes. I got to give a shout out to our friend Veronica Villanueva, who is a former Tough Talks guest and cancer survivor. Right, for the introduction here. You are an amazing woman, Colleen, and I learned a lot from you today, and I look forward to learning more from you in the future. So thank you so much for your passion and your wisdom and your time today.
Perfect. Thank you so much for letting me co-create this space with you. It's such an honor.
Right on. Okay, thanks, Colleen. All right, so hung up way too soon there. I hung up way too soon. Bullshit. This is maybe one of the coolest elements of the whole damn interview. You have created this card deck. Can you hold that up again?
Yeah, so it's called the Magical Creature Oracle Cards deck.
The Magical Creatures Oracle deck.
Card deck.
Yep. Okay, and that's available where?
On Amazon.
What's the story? So we're going to do one of these right now in a minute, but tell us.
We will, yeah.
What's the story?
So
what's this all about?
So when I was diagnosed with cancer, and what I really believe to let me overcome it, is when we're in meditative states, or even when we're just walking, but I see these creatures kind of as symbols letting me know who maybe I should talk to, or what foods I should eat when I was trying to get off the medicine that I was on, or supposed to be on for the rest of my life. Or if I'm just hey, what do I need to do for creating today, or this thing? I see these creatures everywhere, and I see them in shirts. I see them in designs, all these different stuff. So anyway, they live in this crystal castle, which is in this is kind of woo-woo, but oh well. They live in another dimension that's available to us, but it's a crystal castle. And so each creature, when you're moving through light, right? Light is constantly reflecting to you. Everything I believe in our life is a reflection of us. So in the field of consciousness, there's just us. So Chris, you're a reflection of me. I'm a reflection of you. It's impossible for me to see something in you that I cannot see in myself. An example of this, in my first book, I talk about this, writing my fourth book, not out yet. Anyway, first book, there was a guy who came up to me and he said, "Did you try to kill yourself about my scar on my neck?" And I remember I was really angry about this for a long time, but then I came to remember you could only see that in someone. Did you try to kill yourself if you yourself were having thoughts of killing yourself? Because that's not a normal thing to think. So everything's a reflection. So that's why light is so important, because light is a reflection. So these creature cards basically are light made up, and they're a reflection of what's available for you. So I drew 52 of them because there's different ones that I've seen in different realms, but the point of this was to give you affirmations to combine business and spirituality. So that you can
combine business and spirituality. Oh,
but you can absolutely
can you just show me just a hand, like 3 or 4 of the different drawings?
So they're all different.
So would you say that this is like the Colleen Gallagher iteration of like the Osho Zen card deck?
I haven't heard of those ones, but kind of, yeah. I think it's okay. We all have different ones. Like there's all different ones, but depending on, I haven't heard of that one, but there's Gabby Bernstein has some.
Oh, really?
I have them.
So how does it work with you? Can we do a card or whatever, however you do it? Can we do one for the Tough Talks audience collective? Is that that's a thing we can do?
Yeah.
All right.
So so we shuffle.
Okay, so will you set the intention for the audience? The card, you're going to pull a card. What is? I mean, how do you do it? Like, I don't know if it's. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Okay. So I'll just say, like, my intention is that we receive a card, a message from the universe for everyone who is here choosing to receive from the Mental Toughness. No matter where you are, what you're going through in life, this card is meant to be an activation, an initiation, and a blessing for you. So I hope you allow yourself to receive the message. And I already shuffled them. But that was the intention I did in my head when I was shuffling. And so what we have is Trititsu. So it's orange.
Is what?
Trititsu. Trytito. Tritito.
Okay.
And then this is the message at the bottom. So I'll read it in a second. But Earth is your playground. The light being inside your soul can only expand to radiate at a greater capacity when you choose to always play, which is very interesting and suiting for our conversation. You saw me shuffle them. Chris saw me shuffle them. I did not do this. So anyway, orange background means
she don't make shit up like this. She doesn't need to. She knows what these.
Like the world wants you to focus on adventure. And what's really beautiful about this one is, so there's something called sacred geometry. If you study it, it's from like Egypt. It's from, Rome. It's very ancient. It's a tradition that's been done. So even before this creature is here, there's 13 layers of design work of crystals from the crystal castle. So when you get it, it's kind of like the card in the 3D you're entering through. This is the light, and then this is the creature. So there's sacred geometry that's actually hitting you. So this will go straight into recoding your neural pathways into your brain.
Holy shit, that's amazing.
So, so with this one, you have different levels, and you have the different diamonds, triangles, and lines moving through. So it's really wanting you to like let you know that.
Can you hold that up closer to the camera again?
So you have like these different. The eyes are diamonds, because it's always better to see like in a diamond shape, because diamonds, right, reflect light. So it's very beautiful. And then you have these 4 little parts within your core. So your core, right, a lot of us move from our mind, like instead of our core. But when our body is actually the vehicle that we're moving through, and that's why I say disease, DISEASE, like dis-ease, is created from the body when our vehicle, that's why God gives us disease, is not being used how it's meant to be using. For this, it's letting you know to really focus on moving from your core, not moving from just your mind or just your mouth or just your throat. Like move from where feels good. Like, okay, if I'm going here and my gut's like, ooh, I'm crunched, that doesn't feel good. Then yeah, this is just letting you know, like start feeling that gut movement and move in a more playful way. Move in a way that feels expansive, not in a contractive. And then the bottom here, you have the yin and the yang. So it's literally just letting you know, like, what the energies that are coming into the world, which we always have energies, like rooting that into like a new belief system, into what's really possible. And even if you think I'm crazy, like you're listening to this, and I say that word because this is crazy, like a lot of people are like, you're nuts. But like when you think about it, I just want you to have these thoughts of dreaming, just have these thoughts of, you know what, maybe I don't have to work 9 to 5. Maybe even when I worked in corporate, I hated rush hour. So I got in at 6 a.m. and I left at 3 p.m. I'm not doing it. So I still got my results, and I still did what I needed to do. And I made and I asked them, and I got my results and got my way. You can still do the energy work of grounding into this reality, what you really want. Allow yourself to dream there. Allow yourself to play there. Earth is your playground. The light being inside your soul can only expand to radiate at a greater capacity when you choose to always play. I was not going to play at rush hour.
I'm having lunch in 2 days with a mutual friend of ours, who is also a former Tough Talks guest, Ashok.
Oh, yeah.
Ashok Thakur. And he wrote at one of the A-Fests that I attended. I just asked, I had a book, part of my costume was I was a scribe, and I had a book attached around my waist. And I just asked people to write whatever you're feeling at this big party at the end of A-Fest. I'm like, just, I love you. Just write anything that comes through you. And he said, his message is, but the book is right over there. I'm fucking even see it. It's sitting right.
I love it.
It's not that big one. It's the little one over there. Anyway, Ashok wrote, be playful always. And another mutual friend of ours that you just reminded me of, Jason Goldberg, who is also a former Tough Talks guest, talks all the time about playful plus prosperity. Playful prosperity. I love that the card that you pulled for us, the Tough Talks tribe said that the earth is your playground. And what was the very end of it?
The light being inside your soul can only expand to radiate at a greater capacity when you choose to always play.
That couldn't be more perfect. You rock, Colleen. Thank you so much for that.
Of course. Thank you.
Okay. Take care. I can't decide which is my favorite part of that interview with Colleen, whether it's the way that she and I pointed it out at least once, the way that she unapologetically and very authoritatively and very professionally normalizes what a lot of people would consider to be a lot of fringy stuff, divine intelligence, universal knowledge, psychic downloads, telepathic, but I got to tell you, these days, and especially now after having had this conversation with her, it's even more true for me that I am looking at these as skill sets, right? Technologies that if appreciated, practiced, mastered, utilized, can make life a hell of a lot easier. So I don't really operate from the assumption that she's spot on, that we all have access to these abilities, or at least some of them. And that if we, I didn't say it, or she didn't say it, slow down, but I think it's an important thing is to slow down, to notice these coincidences, right? Or these intuitive hits, and then capture them. Like she said, send yourself a note, a text message, or put it in a voice note or something on your phone, and to document it, right? And then we'll see, use it somehow. That, or maybe my favorite part was, I just thought of a third one. Her definition of mental toughness, which is totally badass. She said, mental toughness to me is when you're able to see the beauty and the wisdom that are simultaneously birthed from pain and heartache. That's pretty badass. I love that. Now, the third potential favorite moment was, of course, the second part, which, I'm so glad that I asked her after we hung up. I'm like, we went pretty long, but I was hoping to ask you if you would pull a card from your deck for the audience. So she goes, yeah, let's do it. I said, all right, let's record. So that was Tritito. That's our dude, Tritito. He's all about playfulness. Yeah, baby. Of course that happened. Why wouldn't it? It's Tough Talks. We're all about no time for work. There's only time for play. Come on. All right, you guys, thanks for tuning in. Until next time, create miracles.